James Carville really stirred the pot among Democrats this week with an op-ed in the New York Times in which he argued that Democrats' strategy has to be to roll over and play dead. I'm not making up that wording, his words, not mine. And that the best approach we as a party could take is to step back and not get caught in the treadmill spin cycle of we've got to resist this, we've got to resist that, we've got to resist every last thing, which is exhausting and confusing for the American public because they ultimately can't even keep track of all of the individual things. Better, argues Carville, if your opponent, this is an age-old political principle, if your opponent is hanging himself, keep feeding him rope. Don't get in the way. And let Trump do all these self-defeating things that he's in the midst of doing. And in just a few short months, we're going to have all the strategic openings on issues that we know play in our favor, that we want. He will have created our own campaign material, will be in a far stronger position, and then we prosecute the case. Now, before I ask you to comment on this, let me be clear. I sound like my patron saint, Barack. Let me be clear. You are a Republican political consultant. So, as a pure professional communications and political strategist,
yes,
what did you make of Carville's argument?
Right now, the Democrats, I think they've lost their way. They've lost their direction. This chicken little sky is falling approach is not going to work. It's never going to get you back in office. I don't think Carville's wrong in what he's saying. American people are struggling with some real issues. The economy, I mean, look, everything we talked about Trump and Ukraine and anything we talk about with Doge, part of that's just a big distraction from the standpoint that the economy is still a mess. Where I think Democrats are missing the opportunity is they're not in the bread and butter issues. They're not in the economy. They're not talking about ways to do it. When you do talk, need to talk about issues that people are actually thinking about day in and day out.
I find the Carville advice hard, like many Democrats. Over 4,000 public comments posted in response, I'm sure all from Democrats. Many of them saying, we hear you, but no. The analogy that sprung to mind for me, just from an emotional standpoint, is sometimes when people have a cancer diagnosis, doctors say, we've decided that the best approach is what they call watchful waiting, where they don't take intervention action. Let's take this one at a time, and that your outcomes are better long term. And you've got to have an iron nerve to do that, because it always feels better to do something, to be active. And when you see the kind of destruction that Trump is wreaking across every function of America and on our lives, to hear the advice, do nothing for now, that's in your strategic interest. I can see why people don't react well to that. So I have what we used to call in Congress a friendly amendment. There is a real opening on healthcare. The Republican budget that just passed the House calls for $880 billion of cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. So health care cuts for the elderly and for poorer Americans. Right. Do you think that you could interest people politically in that? I would argue that you can. And Roy Teixeira's argument is we have seen healthcare be a major albatross recently for Republicans, as recently as the 2018 midterms. So Trump and the Republican Party may be walking themselves into a major trap. They're about to step on even more rakes. The dysfunction that they've already created, the firings and unfirings when they realized, whoa, wait a minute. Elon Musk just fired all of the people responsible for nuclear safety so there aren't meltdowns at power plants. He just fired
or his comment the other day about Ebola. Like, we fired. Oh, yeah, but we
rehired the Ebola. Because we're against Ebola. We realized after the fact. Yeah. Oh, the same thing with the bird flu people. Same thing with the food inspection people. These are issues that we've seen time and again Republicans step on rakes on, and it hurts them. So I think Carville's got a valid argument. Here's my friendly amendment. I wouldn't just sit back. And I think the tweak that I would offer is he's right about not getting on the treadmill of resisting every last thing.
Right.
What we need to be fighting is let's pick one thing. Let's fight one thing. We saw this work, much to your chagrin, in 2005 when we ran this playbook. I was on Capitol Hill. I remember how we did it. Nancy Pelosi organized it. We had meetings among the staff. We are all going to speak from the same hymnal. We are going to relentlessly pursue this. We bust people in from around the country who might be imperiled on Social Security. We fought George W. Bush on Social Security privatization. We fought tooth and nail, and we made everything about that issue, and it became his Waterloo. And there were multiple things that dragged George W. Bush down, from his re-election approval rating and his 9/11, post 9/11 approval rating. Iraq was very much one of them. But his failure to make a case on Social Security privatization and the Democrats' ability to make that boomerang in his face, that is what drove his approval rating down furthest and fastest. That's the playbook we should bring, and we shouldn't wait. We should do it now.
I'll tell you, we are vulnerable in healthcare. Don't forget, Trump, I believe at the convention, the RNC this year, I think it was a convention, where he said he saved Obamacare. He saved Obamacare. Now, I would just like to remind every Republican out there, we oppose Obamacare. We have since its inception. Why the Republican president would think it's a good idea to save Obamacare is still beyond me. But how are Republicans in Congress going to reconcile, I was against Obamacare and I called for its repeal, and now all of a sudden I think it's great because Trump saved it, if we can't pick a basic side on it? It's an opening you could drive a semi through.
Right. And that's exactly what I'm suggesting is not, just to be clear, not that we rerun Social Security as our one issue.
Right.
But that we rerun the same playbook. And I would run it on Medicaid and Medicare. I would run it on healthcare. And I would attack relentlessly. I would find those same types of people, bust them in. You asked me over text when we were preparing for this, who's the lead spokesperson?
Who is your leader? Who is the person?
So let me suggest this. The lead spokesperson for the Democratic Party shouldn't be any elected official. We should be putting real human beings, right?
Your own Elon Musk? Should you have your own Elon Musk?
No, I don't want a plutocrat. I want to channel John McCain. I want Joe the plumber.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, see, that's smart.
See, I want to bus in a senior from Maine who has voted Republican, but now is worried about cuts to his Medicare. I want to bus in someone from your home turf. I want to bus in a Trump voter from Missouri who's on Medicaid. By the way, there are a ton, I don't have the statistic in front of me, there are a ton of Trump voters who are on Medicaid, who are low-income working Americans. And I want to bust them in. I want them in front of the camera. And it doesn't matter, Democrats. It doesn't matter if the cuts that are called for in this House budget blueprint, you call it, it's a blueprint, it's a plan, they haven't been specified.
Right.
So what? So what? If we force a defeat, if we force a retreat, we win. There is so much confusion about what Republicans are doing. If we brand them as the party that is trying to kill your health care, that is the pathway back. And we don't, friendly amendment to James Carville. You're strategically right about not like reacting to every last thing, but we don't need to wait. Do it now.
Oh, it's the time, the clock is ticking. And right now, I'm just going to start advising all my Republican clients, start talking about healthcare right now, because I feel like that's the place we got to go, because it is the most vulnerable. It is the thing. But here's my question is, so Trump has the State of the Union next week. He's going to obviously stand up there in all the glory and grandeur of the moment. He's going to talk about a peace deal. He's going to talk about all the things he's done. My question is Elon Musk going to speak? He spoke at the cabinet meeting in Oval Office. Is he going to sit up behind Trump? Like, what's happening with Elon Musk? But at the end of the day, the Democrats are going to give their response.
Sit up behind him like
I would love. I think you fit another chair.
Like
yeah,
you won't see where his right hand is because it's
yeah.
that kind of thing. Okay.
I think it's only appropriate at this point in time. Let's put Musk. We need more unelected bureaucrats talking in these major moments. But that's as an aside. Republicans have always been against unelected bureaucrats, but for some reason we embrace Elon Musk. It makes no sense. But so this is going to happen. The Democrats are going to give their response, and it is notoriously ends political careers. Marco Rubio with the water. It's a hard act to follow.
What about the governor of Louisiana, Bobby Jindal?
Oh, yes, Bobby Jindal.
America can achieve anything.
Right.
Oh, gosh,
yeah.
that guy. Look, here's what the Democrats do. None of the freaking above. I used to work for these people. The 9% of America that likes Congress, I'm one of them. I like members of Congress. I respect members of Congress. I've worked for, they're by and large, behind the scenes, dedicated, thoughtful people.
Absolutely.
And back in the day, I can't speak to today's breed of MAGA Republicans. Back in the day, there were a ton of Republicans who I very much respected, who were elected members of Congress.
Right.
None of you should give the Democratic response. Find me a Democratic Joe the plumber. Find me a Trump voter from 3 months ago who said, I voted for Donald Trump because the price of eggs was too high, because I was worried about inflation and I was worried about the border. And now what I'm worried about is Donald Trump wants to cut my health care. Here are my kids. They depend on this. What are you going to do for them, Donald Trump? Here's my elderly mother. She's on Medicare. You want to cut that. That's what I would do. I would do it right in the State of the Union response. I'd put a real person out front, and I would prosecute this case now.
Yeah. Unfortunately for us, that's not what's going to happen. And I anticipate, I anticipate Trump's going to drive the message, and there's going to be it's going to be the State of the Union's great. Well, it's not as good as he says it is. And let me tell you why he's a bad, evil person. And Democrats are going to continue. And then we're going to watch.
You know what he's going to do? He's going to do a reverse Kamala Harris from their first debate. You know how Kamala, to her everlasting credit, kept throwing stuff out there that he had to jump on about, like the fact that he was found guilty of sexual assault and all of those things. That's what he's going to do. He's going to throw out, he's going to rename Mount McKinley, Mount Melania. He's going to rename California Trumpistan. He's going to do every last, look over here, flood the zone.
Yes.
We're going to react to all of it. Folks, all right, we got to get out of here. If for no other reason than we have to find out what actually happened in the Oval Office. But let me leave you with this. We have the Matt Wylie seal of approval as a Republican professional consultant. You would be, tell me if you agree with this, you would be most worried for your clients if Democrats took my advice and they found a real human to focus relentlessly like a laser beam on healthcare, and that kicked off a 3-month campaign where we talk about nothing but. That would scare the heck out of me.
It would scare me. If you remember, when was this? I think this was Clinton years, when it was grandma eating dog food and cat food was because the Republican program. That visual strikes home. And right now, if it's just some elected member of Congress talking about an issue, it's just an issue. It's not my neighbor. It's not my grandma. It's not someone I care about. With no face to an issue, it's just a policy, and nobody cares about that. And there's not a Democrat right now in your party that's elected that can deliver the message the way they need to. Because when you roll into healthcare, you also get into economy. Can I afford prescription drugs? Can I afford where we are? And we all know the economy drives it. And so if you hit us where we're most vulnerable, because again, we don't have an answer on these issues right now. Our best answer is to make you look at some other thing over here so you don't look at what's right here in front of you.